Audible's best of 2024 picks are here. Discover the year's top audiobooks, podcasts, and originals in all your favorite genres. From memoirs and sci-fi to mysteries and thrillers, Audible's curated list in every category is the best way to hear 2024's best in audio entertainment. Like a stunning new full-cast production of George Orwell's 1984. Heartfelt memoirs like Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson's Lovely One. The year's best fiction like The Women by Kristen Hanna. And Percival Everett's brilliantly subversive James. Another worthwhile listen is Amy Tintera's thrilling and twisting whodunit, Listen for the Lie. This laugh-out-loud funny tale follows Lucy, a woman who needs to clear her own name after a true crime podcast decides to probe into the worst night of her life. One she conveniently can't remember. Audible. There's more to imagine when you listen. Go to audible.com/WonderyPod and discover all the year's best waiting for you.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids instantly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Sign up for Greenlight today at greenlight.com/Wondery. That's greenlight.com/Wondery.
The amazing Kate Casey.
Welcome back for another episode of Reality Life with Kate Casey, and I have quite the crossover episode for you today. My guest I've known for about a decade. Jim Clemente is an author, former New York State prosecutor, former FBI profiler, podcast co-host, and creator of the show Real Crime Profile. He's also a writer and producer on CBS's Criminal Minds. In the mid-'80s, while working as a prosecutor in Manhattan, Jim went undercover and wore a wire to help the FBI and NYPD put away the head of a summer camp who had sexually assaulted him when he was 15 years old. He was then invited to join the FBI team and would eventually join the Bureau's Behavioral Analysis Unit at Quantico as a profiler. During his time at the Bureau, he worked on a number of cases. He spent 3 years undercover as a Wall Street broker, helping bust a price-fixing scam. He was a first responder on 9/11. He was brought in to consult on interrogation after the controversy at Guantanamo Bay. He investigated serial killers, serial rapists, child abductions, child homicide cases, and was an integral part of the team that cracked the DC sniper case, one of which I was very familiar with. The DC sniper case, which is also known as the Beltway sniper attacks, involved a series of shootings in the DC area in 2002. The shooters, John Allen Muhammad and Lee Boyd Malvo, began shooting people on October 2nd, 2002, and over the next 3 weeks, they killed 10 people and injured 3 others. The shootings occurred at random and the victims were not connected, making it difficult for law enforcement to gather evidence. Now, Jim and I discussed this case. Not only did he work on it, but so did his brother, who was also in the Bureau. In addition, we talk about the murder of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. On December 4th, 2024, Brian Thompson was in New York for an annual UnitedHealthcare investors meeting. He'd been the chief executive officer of UnitedHealthcare, the insurance arm of UnitedHealth Group, since April of 2021. He left a Marriott hotel where he had been staying, which was across the street from the New York Hilton Midtown, where his meeting was to be held. As he was walking along West 54th Street toward the Hilton at around 6:45 a.m. local time, he was shot from behind by a person dressed in a hooded jacket with a backpack and a mask and wielding a 3D printed pistol. Brian Thompson was taken to Mount Sinai West Hospital in Manhattan, where at 7:12 a.m. he was pronounced dead. On December 9th, the assassin, a 26-year-old man, was identified and taken into custody in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Manhattan prosecutors last week unsealed an 11-count indictment against the assassin, charging him with a host of crimes connected to the December 4th slaying. Police say evidence includes fingerprints and notebook entries linking him to the shooting death of Brian Thompson. These allegations include first-degree murder, an act of terrorism, criminal possession of a weapon, and forgery for using a fake ID in the days before the murder. The assassin has pled not guilty to all charges. You can also go back and listen to my episode 1167 My guest was Robert D'Amico, a retired FBI agent. We also discussed parts of that interview in this episode. Here is my interview with Jim Clemente.
Hey, Kate, how you doing?
It's good to see you. I feel like we're very old school, old guard podcasters of the Wondery Network, so it's great to be reunited.
Absolutely. We've been around for quite a bit.
So how do you go from a prosecutor to working in law enforcement?
Well, it is a really unusual story, but when I was a prosecutor, I got a call from my brother about the camp director when we were kids. And he said, now that you're a prosecutor, we should go after the guy. I said, why? And he said, because I had snuck into his office once and found 2 paper bags filled with Polaroid pictures of him molesting boys. And I was like,
wow.
What? I said, I thought I was the only one. And that was the beginning of what would be a very wild and tumultuous road. But I went to the FBI NYPD task force on sexual exploitation of children, and I told them my story. I helped them with the investigation. I ended up wearing a wire, meeting with the guy a bunch of times, and actually getting him arrested and convicted, thrown in jail. At the end of the case, the agent slid over a stack of papers to me, and I was like, what's this? And he said, it's an application to the FBI. I was like, they would take me even though I was a victim? I was like, shocked.
Right.
And he said, are you kidding me? There's tens or hundreds of millions of people who are victims of crime. That doesn't make you ineligible to become an FBI agent. You did a great job. You're a lawyer. You're a prosecutor. You have all this experience. And that's how I became an FBI agent. Now, what was great about it, though, was I felt it was a more active role in the justice system. In other words, when I was a prosecutor, you're sort of stuck with the case and the investigation that happens, outside your control. And a lot of times, it's not what you really need. And it also sometimes sort of re-victimizes the victim or the victims. And I wanted to take a more active role in that interaction and do as much as I can because I have this incredible natural curiosity about events and people, and I wanted to actually use that to forward my career. And I thought I would do it for like 5 years and then become an assistant United States attorney, go back to prosecuting, but I had so much fun for 22 years. I just stayed in, did what I did.
How do you think the prosecutor lens helped working in law enforcement?
Oh, well, it absolutely helped in proper arrest procedures, proper search procedures. Probable cause was no problem for me. I knew what was necessary, and putting together cases, even massive cases. And I've had cases where there were 5 assistant United States attorneys working the case, and I was the case agent. I put all of the cases together and worked with 5 different attorneys. They broke it up because it was such a huge case and multiple conspiracies. So, it just helped me, sort of guide me to working major cases. I worked a number of major cases. At the time I was in the Bureau, there were, let me see, I think there have been in the history of the Bureau under 200 major cases, something like that. I can't remember. I don't know the exact number, but I had a bunch of them under my belt, which was cool, which was really a challenge, I guess. When I say fun in the FBI, what I really mean is that I was challenged, and I do think that I had an opportunity to do some good things. So that's what I was referring to.
Now, of those big cases, which ones have stood out for you and meant the most to you?
Well, I mean, I think probably one of them was when I went undercover for 3 years as a commodities broker. I've covered that pretty extensively on my podcast, but another one was obviously DC sniper case. That was...
I remember that very well. I was living there at the time in fear. Yeah.
Yeah, well, everyone was. The entire community was. And my brother and I got involved in the case because we showed up at the crime scene at exactly the same moment. Like he literally was pulling into a parking space and I was pulling into a parking space right next to him, just because the crime scene was about equidistant between our homes. And another crime scene, his wife was at the gas pump just minutes before
Really?
Prem was shot in Massaponax, yes. And, it really hit close to home. I was standing watch a lot of times, and he was out patrolling the streets. He was the SWAT team leader at the Washington field office, and he was out patrolling the streets just looking for the next shooting. And he figured it was going to be in a side street that had a very easy access to the highway, because that's where they determined that they were escaping. And sure enough, he was the first cop. He heard the shooting at the Home Depot where an FBI employee was killed, and he was the first law enforcement at the scene there. He just was seconds away. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. So we're going to talk about something different today, aren't we?
Well, just the last part of that sniper case is, when you look back in retrospect, is there anything that has changed your opinion, or do you look back at any part of that case with a different lens?
Well, I don't know how familiar you are with our process during that, but the FBI was almost completely focused on counterterrorism at that time, after 9/11. And we were not getting involved in criminal cases much. We were actually letting the locals deal with those things, and we were dealing with terrorism. And that didn't sit well with a lot of people. I mean, there were crimes against children, there were child abductions that we didn't feel like we were being able to put all the resources where they should be. And there were also, these major criminal cases. We wanted to flood the entire area with like 5,000 FBI agents and just shut down everything after the next event and just capture the guys. But none of that was happening. Anyway, so my brother Tim and I got involved. Tim is also an FBI agent. And we got involved in the case sort of peripherally, maybe in an unauthorized manner. But we got involved and tried to help, because it was our own communities that were being ripped apart, and everybody was afraid. Everybody was afraid to get gas. Everybody was afraid to go to the store. People were crawling out of their cars. I mean, it was just crazy. But when we finally took the case on in the behavioral analysis unit and were profiling the case, we determined that the guy who was planning this, the sniper, was probably at least in his mid-40s, had been police or military trained, and had police or military experience, because this is a guy that planned and executed 6 shootings, 1 shot, 1 kill, without decompensating. Usually in spree cases like that, where you have so many crimes after each other, you'd see some decompensation, because if this guy's never done it before, this is overwhelming. This is like adrenaline rushing through their veins. So they start to break down a little bit their plans and so forth. And that's usually evident. But this guy's a ghost. He's perfect at this. And so that's why we came up with that aspect of the profile. And Jim Fitz, who's sitting next to me, we were in the FBI Academy together way back in 1987, and we sat next to each other, and he's sitting next to me in the behavioral analysis unit, and he says, "I got to tell you, man, if you look at these writings," because we had the tarot card and then the note that my brother Tim found, he goes, "Look at this. This note is on pink lined like tablet paper, and it has these little stars like you get from your teacher if you do a good job on your homework. And it's in a Halloween baggie. What kind of self-respecting 45-year-old is going to communicate to law enforcement this way? This is bullshit. This guy if he's an adult. He's barely an adult, but I don't even think he's an adult. I think he's like 15, 16 years old.
Right.
He's saying, this is for you, Mr. Police. Like he's looking up to the cops. But also, Mr. Police is a line from reggae songs and the tarot card and the reggae songs. He said, I think we're talking about somebody with Caribbean influence. And everybody's like, that's crazy. This guy has to be 45 at least, that whole thing. And no 15-year-old could ever do this. And then I said, well, then either this guy is completely composed, focused, and amazing at planning and executing these shootings, but he decompensates when he's writing to us. Or for the first time in U.S. history, we have a sniper team. Everybody's like, that's bullshit. No way, that can't happen. It's not possible. Snipers don't play well. They have a God complex. Look at his tarot card. It says, call me God.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I said, well, it would work if one of them, the older one, is controlling the younger one. Then he would feel okay working as a team. In fact, he could be controlling him completely by sexually abusing him. And everybody looked at me and said, no fucking way.
Yeah.
You're just saying that because that's your expertise area and all that stuff. And I said, maybe so, but that's what I'm seeing. And eventually I convinced them to put it in the profile. Anyway, so we were looking for 2 African-American males who were traveling together. And by the way, when I showed up at that crime scene in Spotsylvania Mall and talked to the sheriff, I said, are there any witnesses? And he said, no, there's no witnesses. I sent everybody home. And I said, dude, there's 3,000 cars in this parking lot. People are coming, going all the time. Somebody must have seen something. And he said, well, one kid, but he's a liar. And I said, what do you mean? He's a drug user and all this stuff. And he says there's a black kid, a black guy with a big afro was driving this dark sedan, and that's where the shots came from. And I said, great, did you put out the APB? He said, yeah, I put it out for the white van. So anyway, we said, we're looking for black adult male in his mid-40s and a teenage boy in his mid-teens driving a dark sedan. And within 24 hours, they were spotted at a rest stop, sleeping in a car by a truck driver. So actually, and then I think it was 10 or 11 years later, Malvo came out and said that Muhammad had been molesting him, picked him up out of a shelter and had been molesting him the whole time.
Yeah.
So it just reinforced everything that I had learned during my training in the BAU, from the guys who started the whole thing. And it doesn't change the way I look at things, but it actually gives me more confidence in behavioral analysis, criminal behavioral analysis as a whole.
Here's something I'm really looking forward to as the weather turns cooler. Football games. Jack's in the tackle football playoffs this weekend, and Mia's dancing at her school's football games, which, by the way, are #1 in the nation. I need to be warm. I need to be chic, so I slip into a cozy sweater from Quince. Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. I just said $50. $50. Quince lets you treat your loved ones and yourself to everyday luxury at an affordable price. All Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. So that includes beautiful leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim, and so much more. How are they able to do that? Well, by partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, which passes the savings on to you and to me. Quince is on the nice list. So get yourself a Mongolian cashmere sweater in oatmeal or black, my fave. Gift luxury this holiday season without the luxury price tag. Go to quince.com/Kate Casey for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/Kate Casey to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/Kate Casey.
Holiday magic is in the air, and DSW's got all the shoes to make your season extra merry. Believe, you've got parties to attend and lists to check twice, so DSW is taking care of the details, like gifts to make their eyes all aglow, styles that bring joy to your world, brands everyone wants, like UGG, Nike, Birkenstock, and more, and deals to make your budget bright. Find the perfect shoes for you and yours at a DSW store near you or dsw.com.
Jim, as you know, I had a chance to speak with a retired agent, Robert D'Amico, about the murder of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. What did you think of this case from the very beginning? And were there any additional thoughts you had about that interview with Robert D'Amico?
Well, yeah, sure. When I first heard about the case, remember I saw the video, and I think a lot of people were saying this was a hit. This was a professional hitman and so forth. And I was like, it's kind of crazy, but he couldn't have framed that shot any better if he was a Hollywood producer. I said, this guy intentionally shot him in front of a camera. This guy is looking for fame and infamy. This is not a hit person who would have gone right up to him within an inch or two and pulled the trigger. And I think, like Robert D'Amico said, he would have given him a coup de grace, the final shot or shots that ensured that this guy was never going to survive, right? That didn't happen. And there are a number of indicators, and I think they were reinforced over time as they got more and more information about this guy. But he is definitely, in my mind, a fame seeker, as opposed to somebody who was professionally trying to hit somebody so that he could go on being a hitman after that. This was somebody who did not have the criminal sophistication that he thought he had. This is a fairly common thing when you have a smart person. We saw the same kind of thing go on in Idaho, where somebody murdered 4 students and thought he was better than the cops, thought he was better than anybody. This is exactly the same situation. Their personalities are very similar in a lot of ways, but they express themselves slightly differently, though. But we'll get into all that. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, though, listening to it, one of the issues, and my brother Tim is the tactical guy, right? So I had a conversation with him about this. He was the SWAT training coordinator at Washington Field Office, and I'm sure he probably knows SSA D'Amico. He probably knows him personally. But we were discussing this, and there's an anomaly here. So you could see in the video that he has to manually rack the gun after he shoots the victim. And apparently he had to do that 3 times because not only are there 3 shell casings, which means that the shell casings ejected from the gun after it was fired, but there are also 3 full unfired rounds on the ground. That happened when he racked the action back. So it's, in discussing this with my brother, he said he could have been using subsonic rounds. Like he's using a suppressor to try to be quiet, right? So he doesn't get caught immediately. But he may have been using subsonic rounds, which are slower and are less loud. They may have caused when the round cycled. So as the slide comes back, the ejection arm pops out the used shell casing, right? The fired round. And then it goes back a little further. And then as it comes forward with a spring, it picks up the next round out of the magazine and chambers it into the chamber, right? Pulls it into the chamber. My brother thought that perhaps it didn't fully seat in the chamber. And that's why when he pulled the trigger the second time, it didn't fire that round. So he had to then rack it back, and it ejected the full round that hadn't been fired. and then rack it forward manually. And now it seats properly and he's able to shoot. And then he had to do it again and again. That's why you have 3 casings and 3 unfired rounds on the ground. And this is something that my brother attributed to either the fact that it was a printed gun. Now, that could mean that some of the edges weren't filed properly, that it was slightly off, or that he didn't have all the springs that are necessary, and that's why he had to do it, or the spring wasn't tight enough, so it didn't rack it back hard enough to actually properly seat the round into the chamber so that the firing pin could hit it. So there's a number of things that could have happened, or it could have been literally a design flaw. And I know that Agent D'Amico said that it could have been that he had the slide was actually purchased, and the slide or the trigger and all those components could have been purchased, and just the frame was what was 3D printed. I don't know, but it's possible that some of the items that you might get online wouldn't maybe not be up to specs. And so whatever the factors are, it appears that he had to, every time he fired that gun, he had to reseat the next round. And it may have worked, instead of him racking back the action, if he had just pushed it forward, like hit it forward, that may have caused it to then be able to be fireable. But instead, he racked it back and racked it back and racked it back. And that's one of the things. The fact that he had to keep doing that is one of the reasons why it reinforces the fact that he's not an actual hitman, right? He's a smart person, but that doesn't make him criminally sophisticated, right? Now, he did some things forensically sophisticated, walking around with the hood and keeping his face covered with a mask, COVID type mask or whatever. That way he minimized the number of cameras that are around that would see him. Doing, as Agent D'Amico said, using 3 different modes of egress, smart, all that stuff. But smiling for the young lady at the clerk at the desk at the hostel he was staying at, pulling down his mask when she asked him to, those kinds of things are absolutely boneheaded mistakes that led to his capture. Also, I think it was a bottle of water, and I don't know, was it something else, I think, with his DNA at the scene that they were able to match. Those things are just, totally bonehead moves. This guy is not a sophisticated killer. He has some degree of forensic sophistication, some degree of criminal sophistication, but it's not experiential. And because of that, just like the jerk in Idaho, he made mistakes, based on the fact that his adrenaline was pumping. His plans did not go exactly as he had anticipated or fantasized. And that, again, gives you another insight into his personality. Here's a guy who felt the need to write everything down, to write out his plans, and to try to follow that to the letter. Now, why would he do that? If he was a professional, he would never, ever write anything down. It's just what you have to do when you don't know what you're doing, right? So he's leaking out information about his abilities when that happens. When they arrested him, I know you talked to Agent D'Amico about the fact that he still had the gun, and Agent D'Amico said, I would expect that he would have, as soon as he got to another town, he would have found the first body of water and tossed it. Well, to me, if you go back into his history a little bit and postings that he's made, sort of idolizing the Unabomber, he, I believe, is also leaking out the information that this is what he wants. The reason why he kept the gun was because he wanted to keep doing this. The reason why he wrote the casings was because he wanted to instill fear And this is why I believe he's being charged with terrorism, right? He wanted to instill fear in the community. He wanted all the other CEOs to be looking over their shoulders and everybody who worked for any of these insurance companies. And you're talking about many tens of thousands of people across this country, right, who do that. So this is what his goal was. He wanted that kind of infamy, and he wanted it to continue over a period of time. This was his goal. This is why I say don't even speak his name. We'll get to this whole horrific kind of behavior in the public and in comments, and even women who are fawning over this guy. That kind of reaction is exactly what he's looking for. This is exactly what will encourage him and other people like him with diminished self-image and serious personality traits that are off the charts in the worst way. This is what they're looking for. So we need to rob them of this as much as humanly possible. So, I guess those are the headlines. Do you have any specific questions?
Well, he comes from such a privileged background. He was born into wealth. He went to the Gilman School, has an undergrad and graduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania. Does it fit into any typical criminal profile to go after an executive when he was born into opportunity?
It wasn't. It's my understanding now. There's a lot of misinformation out there, but it's my understanding that insurance companies are basically where his family got their wealth. So it's sort of a backhanded, quasi-idealistic motive that he's expressing. I don't believe it for a minute. I do believe that he's using it as an excuse. There is obviously some potential for some, I'd say, mental disorder. Now, I'm not talking about criminal insanity. Criminal insanity is when you don't know the rightfulness or wrongfulness of your actions. And people will argue, well, he did this basically in front of a camera. Obviously he didn't know it was wrong, right? His lawyers might argue that. But I would say the opposite. Look at the extent to which he hid his identity to get to that point and after that point. And every single move he made after he left the crime scene, after he had murdered this guy in cold blood, every single move he made was in order to conceal his identity because he knew what he was doing was wrong. So, people are calling him some kind of Robin Hood, which is complete bullshit. And everybody that's saying, well, we hate insurance companies, we hate this, we hate that. Yeah, go ahead, but you don't respond by killing. I mean, it's just the most outrageous, extreme, worst possible reaction, because I'm sure there's a new CEO in that same place, and there will be one after that one and another one after that one. What you have to do is talk to your legislators and get them to, make sure that there are laws that restrict people, if they're doing something wrong, restrict them from doing it. That's what you need to do. This doesn't change anything. And if anything, it makes it worse for people in that situation, because there's absolutely no positive repercussions when you murder somebody. First of all, his family. Secondly, other people in that position. Thirdly, other people in those corporations. They're going to be afraid to go to work now. These people that actually provide the service, there's so many of them that will be afraid that somebody's going to come and blow up their building, or, come in and shoot people, or drive a car through the front door, whatever it is. This is the kind of thing, the fear that he has instilled in people. And this is why, another reason why it's wrong. So if you look at his behavior, it tells you so much. Why would he do what he did if he didn't know it was right or wrong, didn't know it was wrong. But he is in his mid-20s, which is when, typically things like schizophrenia start to
Right.
show themselves. So this is something that is a possibility. I mean, he did go basically offline, right? His parents reported him missing for a few months, right? And so something psychologically may have happened at that time, but that doesn't excuse, in the least, it doesn't excuse the behavior, the decisions he made, and the planning. It's a very clear indication that he knew exactly what he was doing.
You sign up for something, forget about it after the trial period ends, then you're charged, month after month after month. The subscriptions are there, but you're not using them. In fact, 85% of people have at least one paid subscription going unused each month. Thanks to Rocket Money, you can see all your subscriptions in one place and cancel the ones you're not using anymore. Now, boom, you're saving more money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/Wondery today. That's rocketmoney.com/Wondery. rocketmoney.com/Wondery.
What if you could learn from the world's best all in one place? You can with Masterclass. With Masterclass, you can learn from the best to become your best. Masterclass is the only streaming platform where you can learn and grow with over 200 plus of the world's best. And you can access Masterclass on your phone, computer, smart TV, or even in audio mode. Confidently navigate the media with influential intellectual Noam Chomsky. Use science to solve your problems with Bill Nye, or learn from the past with Pulitzer Prize-winning historian Doris Kearns Goodwin. And the classes really do make a difference. 88% of members feel that Masterclass has made a positive impact on their lives. Plus, every new membership comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Don't wait another moment to start your learning journey with Masterclass. Masterclass always has great offers during the holidays, sometimes up to as much as 50% off. Head over to masterclass.com/Wondery for the current offer. That's up to 50% off at masterclass.com/Wondery.
Even if we know that he knew exactly what he was doing, can we still try to understand what led up to that? There's been suggestions that maybe he had a back injury. I know that he spent some time in Hawaii doing alternative therapies.
Mm-hmm.
Would there be something that could signal to others so that we can better understand this particular case so that we prevent further ones on what may have transpired for him to get to a place where he would have come up with this plan?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's just in a similar way to school shooters, mass murderers. There's a book, I believe it's called Off Ramps or something like that. There's two researchers that we had on Real Crime Profile, and unfortunately, I can't remember their names right now, but they had studied the lead up to a bunch of these shootings, and they are trying to design off-ramps so that you can sort of prevent these things from happening. And I think the most common successful way to prevent that is to have somebody in their life engage with them on whatever subject it is that is bothering them, whether it's being bullied or whether it's some kind of medical issue. That may be the case in this case, but it is human interaction. When somebody tries to isolate themselves, when they're posting about emulating a serial killer, a serial bomber, this is a call for intervention. And here's the thing: what I was shocked at when we finally got his identity was, I know that there are hundreds of people who recognized him. There's no question. You can't be the valedictorian of your school and be involved in so many activities and not have people recognize a photograph of you. A totally unknown person at McDonald's recognized him when he saw him.
Great
now,
point.
That tells me that his family and his friends and his classmates and his associates most likely also recognized him. Now, they may have wanted to say, no, it couldn't be him, it couldn't be him, it couldn't be him. But none of them, not a single one of them, made the effort to call law enforcement. Like in the case of Ted Kaczynski, like his brother, his sister-in-law actually instigated it, but his brother came forward and said, I want you to rule this guy out because, he looks like, his writing looks like the writing of the Unabomber. I want you to rule him out. Nobody did that in this case. Nobody came forward and said, look, here's a picture of my classmate. Here's a picture of the valedictorian at our school. Here's a picture of my nephew, my cousin, my son. Nobody did that and said, rule him out because we know he couldn't do this. So that kind of indifference in the face of a violent murder, I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
What do you make of the fact that he pled not guilty?
He has to. I mean, that's the way it is. They always do. He probably had nothing to do with that decision. His lawyer just said, you're going to plead not guilty so we can prepare for trial. He's going to try to get him off. I'm certain that the family has enough money to hire very good lawyers or law firm, and they're going to be billing a lot of money for this defense.
What is the one thing that we could look for as this case and the trial continues to unfold? Is there one major element that we need to pay attention to?
I think you're going to hear from, I think as Agent D'Amico said, the case here is overwhelming. DNA, fingerprints, the gun, the notes, the planning, everything. It's the videos. I mean, this guy is rock solid in terms of proof against him. But I think the thing which is going to be mostly celebrated by the assholes who are supporting him, is going to be the type of defense that they decide to put forward. I think people are going to be shocked by it, and people are going to be applauding it. So we'll see. But I don't think this is going to be. This is not going to be a difficult case. I think the reason why, again, is one of those leakage incidents. The reason why it's not going to be a problem is because he wanted this attention. This was his personality, this need, this desire-driven behavior that he had was so that he could get this kind of attention. And you can see him soaking it up. Any opportunity to see, when he sees the media, he acts up. This is his opportunity, his 15 minutes of fame.
So in other words, the perp walk and going to a courtroom, all of the attention that he's receiving is only making his ego worse.
Yes, and it reminds me of the Night Stalker in L.A. He was similar in that way. He was a horrific killer, just the most vile, disgusting killer, and women were throwing themselves at him. He was wearing sunglasses to court. He was just soaking up every second of media attention he could, and people were falling for it. And it's just totally, in my book, it's completely ignorant.
I'm so grateful for your time.
Yeah.
I always love to hear your insight.
It's great talking to you.
What are you working on the podcast so that people can catch up on episodes?
Well, we've been talking about current events on Real Crime Profile and Best Case, Worst Case. Obviously, one of my proudest moments in 2024. Well, two of my proudest moments in 2024 is Kathy Canning and I. We released on Audible FBI profilers' criminal archives. And it's 15 of the cases that we worked together when we were in the behavioral analysis unit, Kathy Canning Mello and I. And she's just an amazing woman, and she's so accomplished, and she did an amazing job in the FBI, went around the world with the FBI. And so we were able to talk about cases that were really the most heart-wrenching and challenging and some of the greatest ones that we worked. But also, I released Bluebeard that I wrote with Peter McDonald, and it's my first scripted audio series. And
great!
And they call it on Audible an audio book, but either way, it made the top 20 of 2024, and it made number 5 the bestsellers list for the country for fiction writing. Although it is extremely closely based on reality, because it's about the first serial killer in LA. And I actually have his 152-page typed confession.
Wow.
And it is unbelievably insightful. And what was great is I was able to infuse in this series a lot of behavioral analysis so that I could explain what was actually going on. And you see how he is in this interrogation with the district attorney, Mr. Woolwine. And then you see how he is with his new bride, Kate Wambecker. And, he's amazing. And great cast and a big supporting cast too. But this guy married 30 women and killed 16 of them. And he was arrested 100 years ago in 1920. And basically, if it weren't for Kat, he probably would have killed them all. So she's amazing. So anyway, that's what I've been doing. I'm writing a new one now with another friend of mine, Stephen Mills, and hopefully we'll get that out in the coming year. And that to me, it was so much fun writing. It's unbounded because it's audio. You don't have to worry about production budgets, and but you really can engage people's imagination, and so that was great.
Where can people listen to your show, and where can they follow you on social media?
Well, my two weekly podcasts, Real Crime Profile and Best Case, Worst Case, you can listen to wherever you listen to your podcast. They're everywhere, and on social media, I'm the Real Jim Clemente, and on Instagram, and Audible. I have 20 XG Productions, my production company with my brothers. We have 25 titles on Audible, so you could just search my name or XG Productions on Audible, and they should all pop up. There's lots of them there. So we've been busy.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kate. And thank you for allowing me to do this crossover episode. I'm really happy that we got to sort of unite from our days back in Wondery. And I really, really respect all the work you do. I mean, it's crazy how much work it is to do 6 episodes a week. Wow.
I appreciate that. And I'll have to I'm going to rope you back for other stuff now. Sorry.
Cool. No problem. And I may do the same.
Fantastic.
All right. Well, take care.
The amazing Kate Casey.
I want to thank my fantastic guest and remind you to go and subscribe to the show, leave a 5-star review, join the Facebook group Reality Life with Kate Casey, check out Jim's podcast, Real Crime Profile. And you can also get my must-watch list of what to watch in unscripted TV by going to katecasey.substack.com, Patreon for bonus episodes, patreon.com/Katecasey. And you can also follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram at KatecaseyCA, TikTok, it's Kate Casey, and Twitter and Threads at Kate Casey. Check back tomorrow for an all-new episode.
Hello, ladies and gerbs, boys and girls. The Grinch is back again to ruin your Christmas season with Tis the Grinch Holiday Podcast. After last year, he's learned a thing or two about hosting, and he's ready to rant against Christmas cheer and roast his celebrity guests like chestnuts on an open fire. You can listen with the whole family as guest stars like John Hamm, Brittany Broski, and Danny DeVito try to persuade the mean old Grinch that there's a lot to love about the insufferable holiday season. But that's not all. Somebody stole all the children of Whoville's letters to Santa, and everybody thinks the Grinch is responsible. It's a real Whoville whodunit. Can Cindy Lou and Max help clear the Grinch's name? Grab your hot cocoa and cozy slippers to find out. Follow Tis the Grinch Holiday Podcast on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. Unlock weekly Christmas mystery bonus content and listen to every episode ad-free by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts.